All right. Good evening, everyone. Once again, my name is Olawumi Adele. So I'm going to be taking us through some ceremonies, but sometimes by the time we start, it depends. It's a whole lot, but I will try and break it down into very simple and understandable words that will help you assimilate as much as you can. You can also repeat the video so you can stick. So simple ground rules. If you want to um, ask questions, just raise your hands and or Damsola will let me know. But if not, at some point I can just tell us to unmute, ask one or two things, and I'd like you guys to engage. Please don't go silent on me. If you go silent on me, I'll just start crying. Don't go silent on me. And like Damsola said, the most important thing you should know, because you're saying Scrum here, doesn't mean it's for Scrum Masters. It is for everybody. You even need to understand what these ceremonies are and everything. So before we even begin, before I even transition, can somebody tell me what do they know that is a ceremony? What's a ceremony? Like what's a Scrum ceremony? Feel free to unmute. Anybody share with me what do you think a ceremony is? Come on, come on, come on, come on.
Scrum meetings.
Okay, who is speaking? Because I want to be knowing my champs for today. I'll be noting your name in case I can beg. I can beg my oga to give the person. So, Idioma, okay, this is serious. Okay, you said meetings. Okay, okay. I'm not sure yet. Any other person, any other insight? Who knows what ceremonies are? Scrum ceremonies precisely. Anybody? Anybody wants to echo? Those things shoot.
Intro.
Intro. Okay. All right. Intro to
sorry,
what
I
do you
said
mean intro?
orientation. Oh, I said orientation on Scrum Master.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. How about you, Tosin? If you're speaking, Tosin, we can't hear you. You can drop it on the chat. Damsala read it for me, but we can't hear you. John, how about you? Shoot.
Yeah, ceremonies are the coming together of people in the Scrum methodology, or the agile methodology, sorry. It is the coming together of people, member of the team, to to um to make decisions
All right.
and to actually see the progress of the project, and
Okay.
also to perhaps get away breakers, or whichever problems they are facing, they can discuss, and to check the progress of the project. I think.
All right. Okay. All right. That's a long definition, which is fantastic, honestly. So for the three of you that have spoken, you haven't gone off at all. In simple words, it's actually a meeting. In a better explanation of just saying the things the meeting can encompass is what John just gave us, the progress of the project and everything. You're coming together to talk about it, deliberate on it. Yeah, it's acceptable. The intro part, yeah, it depends. Like for example, I'm sure you were in Moji's session when she told you about kickoff meeting and all that. It's part of it. So, but I will precisely explain all what the ceremonies are. That's why I like people speaking, so you have an idea. Then at the end of the day, I'll probably ask the question again, and people will explain to me, better. So thank you for the contribution. Like I said, I'm noting the people that are speaking: John, IJ, and please help me. Somebody spoke. Eva. Thank you. All right.
Yes, sorry, Olawumi. So you
Okay.
have on the chat as well from Tosin.
Okay. What did Tosin say?
Tosin says ceremonies are the daily Scrum meeting, the sprint planning, the sprint review, and retrospective.
How are you? All right. Right. Okay, thank you so much, Tosin. I think we're getting there. We're getting there. I want to first define the one they used to define. Did you say it's not Owambel? Because people will think that it's time for a show B. It's not Owambel. That's the definition of Scrum ceremonies. Okay, let's shoot so that we can make best use of the time. Now, just on a more let's delve in fast so that we can finish right on time. because this session usually takes 2 hours, but I just thought of it that we could reduce it as much as we can because Moji has done a bit of justice for us with the session she held last week. So to an extent, people will have an idea of first the Scrum, because sometimes I don't like delving into ceremonies without you having an idea of what Scrum is, waterfall, Agile in itself, and all that. So with this, we just delve into Scrum and Agile project management straight away. So we'll move as fast as we can, then dwell more on the ceremonies. All right, so this is what we'll be doing today, just Agile project management, just a touch on the framework, what Scrum is in itself, empiricism in Scrum, the ceremony is in itself, then the ceremonies, right? We'll just go through it quickly. But the last two are the main things that we're doing today. So the first four is just like a background of where we are going to, so you have an understanding of why we're doing this. So thank you. So what's project management? What is project management? Agile project management precisely. So different school of thoughts, but the most important one is the definition by the APM, right? So still Agile project management, which is just the iterative approach of delivering projects throughout the life cycle of that project. So iteration now is in its sense is now where we're coming to. So you see, one of the things I keep repeating this. One of the things I like about Agile, Scrum, just project management in itself, the English word actually means a lot. The English word carries the weight to what you're thinking about. So what is iteration in the first place? Iteration is something that is repetitive, something you do, continuously, like a repetitive process. So they're just telling you that Agile is like a repetitive process, the things you do repetitively to achieve that project. Yeah. You have set. I remember when I also took us what a project is about. You have to have a start and end date before you can say the thing is a project. It has to have a duration. So this is just telling us that this duration in bits, is what we need to say is we need to do to call this an agile project management. That's the whole idea. I just wanted to sink in. That's why I'm not trying to go too technical or try to start telling you the collaborative of the adaptability of the this. No, just in simple terms. Iterative approach of delivering project throughout the cycle, right? So, however, I emphasize it more on, adaptability as a team, teamwork, focus on the client, constant collaboration, work with the stakeholder from start to finish, improving each phase as you go. So that's where agility starts coming in gradually. That's where agile is now, more companies are inclining towards agile because of this iterative approach, carrying everybody along in simple terms. You prioritize collaboration, customer feedback, quick delivery, all those kind of things. Those are the things that we look at when we talk about agile project management. Now, if you remember the waterfall side of things, we just sit down, we plan everything. We need the customer at the start to tell us what he wants. And when we're done with everything, we'll call the customer, come and see. Like we said, it's not a bad approach, especially if you've done the process, a lot of times, right? But however, in this ever-changing VUCA world, I know most of us might not have heard of VUCA world. I keep trying to use it so that people can understand, what we're saying, the world is VUCA. When we say world is VUCA, we're talking of the volatility of the world. We're talking of uncertainty. We're talking of complexity, ambiguous. All these words might seem similar, but they are all different. They all have different meanings. So when we're saying complexity, we're saying, okay, like when something has plenty interconnections. When we're saying volatility, we're saying, okay, you don't know the knowledge of the thing. It's not compulsory. You understand. You move left. You do like something that is unstable, unexpected, more like that. When we're talking of ambiguity, now we're talking of unknowns. You don't even know how big the thing is. You don't even understand. Then uncertainty is more of there's possibility that it can happen right. There's possibility it can happen left. You understand that kind of thing. So they are all different, but the world keeps changing. You can't stay put today. What we're saying today is not what we're saying last day on the internet. It's not what we're saying previously. Things keep moving. So how do you adapt to this changing world that we are going to? So that's why we're using agile, right? So I keep repeating because people always mix quotes. We're not saying the traditional way is bad. If you're already an expert in it, or you want to do a construction, something that is huge, like big elephants project like that, all those kind of things. We can be speaking business that okay, we need a proper tick planning to progress and all that. So that's the idea of using agile in the first place. But I won't take too much time on this. We'll go straight to Okay, what the framework is about. So you see, Agile is, I like still keeping this umbrella. Agile, you remember that we have project management. Please picture it in your mind that I'm saying it. Okay, we have project management. That's the like canopy gongo, the big umbrella, right? So under project management, we have a couple of methodologies, but the most common one that we use is, the traditional waterfall and the agile methodology. Now, under agile methodology, which is what we are inclined to do in BlueSky, under agile methodology, we have so many frameworks, right? We have the SAFe, we have Scrum, Kanban, Lean, XP, like that. So these are all the frameworks. There's DSDM. It depends on what people want to use under Agile and what works for them, and depending on the type of project they are embarking on, right? But the most common one, even if you've not heard anything, you'll be hearing Scrum, 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 Scrum. Then maybe afterwards you'll be hearing maybe Kanban, Kanban, Kanban. Then in the manufacturing side of things, you'll be hearing Lean, Lean, Lean. For the developers and programmers, you can be hearing XP, like that. So it depends on the project that you are embarking on before you decide on the particular framework that you're using. But however, when it comes to the software side of things, people are more inclined to use, Scrum framework. So in BlueSky, we have adapted to the Scrum framework, and that's what we'll be teaching you and taking you through, so you can have a very good, robust understanding of what Scrum is about. Okay, moving on. What is Scrum in itself, right? I've been talking about what Agile project management is. Now I've told you what Agile in itself is talking about, like the bigger umbrella. So what is this Scrum? What is this Scrum that we're talking about? Okay. So you see, there are several ways to describe, okay, what Scrum is this, is that, but I will give you just very simple understanding of, what Scrum is about. You see, when people come together to work collaboratively, that's why you saw me, I was taking my time to listen to John's explanation. He was almost actually defining Scrum. That's why I was just, trying to absorb what he's talking about. The Agile project management framework that we're using as, that we're sorry about my that we're focused on, which is Scrum, is designed to just help teams work together effectively. In just simple terms, there's a framework that has been designed to help people collaborate and work through complex projects, right? When you're given a project, some projects are simple, straightforward, straight to the point, but sometimes we have a lot of complex projects. So those complex projects, how do we handle it? How do we walk through this project? That's why we have adapted to Scrum methodology. So how do we use this effectively? So what is the Scrum methodology? So what is it talking about? What is it pushing towards? So it's based on a lot of things, but at the same time, the things you will not stop hearing is increment, iterative. Those are the things you'll be hearing when it comes to Scrum. Now, before I just proceed into Scrum a bit, people are always a bit confused about what Agile and Scrum is, aside it being that Agile is the methodology, and Scrum is the framework. But in its sense, Agile is the philosophy that centers on continuous increment around that project. So when you do continuous increment, continuous increment to improve things bit by bit. That's the idea of Agile, right? But Scrum is the framework of getting that thing done. That's like the main difference. Scrum is that where you sit to get the work done, right? Agile is that bigger philosophy to say, okay, let's do things iteratively, let's do things incrementally. That is Agile for you. So that's where the changes is, the difference is in. So what is Scrum? Scrum is a framework that is designed to help team collaborate on complex projects and iteratively and incrementally. So I'll tell you what iterative is. What is iteration? Like I told you, the English word helps. So please just take it in as much as you can. And remember what Uzo told you about having a glossary. So this is time to start putting glossaries, because the more glossaries, the more words you accumulate in your glossaries and speak them on a daily basis, the better it is for you to be able to, blend into the system as fast as you can. So when we talk of iteration is a repetitive process. I mentioned that earlier. So in Scrum, when we talk of iteration, we're talking of a time box where the development work takes place. So it's like various teams, it depends. Some teams can take, it's between 1 to 4 weeks, but most teams on an average, they do 2-week sprints. Please note that some teams do 1-week sprint, some teams ask for 4-week sprint. So I'm going to ask questions at the end of this, because some people, I don't want you to lose focus, but I need to explain this in a as little nitty-gritty as I can, so it will sit. But if you're lost at any time, please raise your hand so Damsola will call my attention, right? So like I said, iteration is like a repetitive process, and development takes place, when you're doing iteration. So that time box where that development is done is what the iteration is. So iteration is more like timeline, something like that, just to help you break it down. So it's usually in Scrum, it's usually between 1 to 4 weeks, right? But most teams adapt to 2 week sprints. I like using myself as an example that, like for me, I use a 1 week sprint. I use a 3 week sprint rather for my team, because my team, we think for other teams. I'm just trying not to, diverge as much, but what we do is we try to help people improve on their own process. So using a 2 week sprint was a bit cumbersome for us, so we went for a 3 week sprint. Please, can you mute yourself if you're not speaking, or as well? So we use a 3 week sprint, but on the average, like if there are 100 teams in my company, for example, maybe 97 will probably be using the regular 2 week sprints. You maybe have one as 3 weeks, maybe one as 4 weeks, and maybe one as 1 week. But it depends. And guess who makes this decision on what weeks that you need? The team actually does. But sometimes you just follow the trend of the organization. But usually the team can make that decision on who decides on the duration of the sprint. So in iteration now, iteration is the 1 to 4 weeks. Now, sprint on the flip side is that single time box, just that 1 week, the 1 or 2 weeks. Remember now that currently we're in sprint zero. So sprint zero for us now is a 2 week sprint where we are just settling in, we're trying to onboard everybody, make everybody understand the project they want to work on, have a basic knowledge, which we have commenced today, for example. So that 2 weeks is a sprint. So that's the difference sort of between a sprint and an iteration. Iteration is, the time box, right? The sprint is that one single time box iteration of continuous development. So the team needs to complete all what they've planned within that particular time frame to say, okay, we've completed a sprint. So that's a sprint. Sprint is more like one, iteration is many, right? So combination of many, that's iteration. So Scrum helps team structure and manage their work. It helps teams structure and manage their work through a set of value, principles, and practices. So, and the Scrum team also follows to deliver a product and service. I'll explain all the increments and all the artifacts we need when it comes to this, yeah? Then it is also one of the most widely adopted Agile framework. I thought I should mention that before we progress. Okay. So, we've not gotten to the ceremonies, but I'll just use 10 minutes for us to progress through this, yeah? Okay, so the Scrum framework in itself. So this is a glance of what the Scrum framework is. This is the full glance of what Scrum framework is. Sorry, I was trying to manage my little one so it doesn't enter into the recording. So Scrum framework. So what Scrum framework is a set of rules, roles and events and artifacts used to implement agile projects. So as usual, it emphasizes on teamwork amongst other things. Okay. So Scrum is based on empiricism, lean thinking, the knowledge that comes from experience and all that. That's what we base Scrum on. So it's also structured to help teams to naturally adapt to changing conditions. So that's why we're using Scrum. That's why a lot of people adapt to Scrum. So it usually will use your requirements, you remember that Uzo took you on how to elicit requirements, how to prioritize and all that. Those are the things you need for Scrum. I'm just trying to give us a basic knowledge before we now start talking the real deal for tonight, right? So it's also an iterative approach. I've mentioned iteration. I'm not going to be saying iteration so much, but it's an iterative approach consisting of sprints that typically will last from 1 to 4 weeks with the objective of improving on a particular product, right? Then a Scrum team size typically is 10. I think, there are different plus or minuses, but officially we'll say 7 plus or minus 2. In the Scrum guide, it's tell you same thing. Some will just stick to 9, some will stick to 10, like that. But really think about it. When you're in a team and you are now getting over 10, it becomes a bit cumbersome to manage easily. So that's why people just stick to 10. and all those that work with Scrum. Now, there's a slogan I always say about Scrum, guys. You see Scrum, Agile, and everything. Please, when you get to your organizations, always remember that Scrum works for you. You don't work for Scrum. So you need to find a way to be as flexible as you can when it comes to working, but not breaking the rules, not bending the rules, doing all the right things, and making sure that your team is following all the Scrum processes. Now, I'll tell you all the Scrum processes in this one glance. I think I also put it at the end of the slide also, so you can now understand it better. But I want to take it. Now, this is the journey of Scrum. So this is where it starts getting interesting. Forget all the boring bits at the beginning. You just need a bit of background to have a bit of understanding of what all this Scrum and everything that we're talking about. So this is Scrum. An organization wants to do a project. The executive, the stakeholder, the customers, the users, they want to do a project. So they approach a Scrum team to carry out that project. So who is the vision of that Scrum team? Remember I told you guys the three people within Scrum, the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the developers, which is the team, right? So these all people here makes up a team in Scrum. So we're getting the knowledge from the up, that's the executives or the stakeholders, whichever one. They tell the team, Ty, what do you want to mute? They tell the team what they want to do. But this conversation is held with just the product owner. Guys, please picture this. It's a journey. So the product owner now has an understanding of what all these guys wants to do. So the product owner brings this same information to the team. And usually they probably will start with the business analyst, depending on the composition of your team. So they start with probably the business analyst to give a breakdown of what they are doing. And the reason they start with that is because the business analysts, they work before the sprint. So if a sprint is coming, the business analyst would have already done the work down as against that upcoming sprint. They don't work during the sprint. A BA works before the sprint commences. That's the simple explanation of how the BA does their work, right? So the product owner is explaining all the things that these executives they want. So those things might be up to 8 things, right? And when they have that discussion, then they will rank what they feel is the most important. So they will rank it by importance. Now the team will come together and deliberate and speak on this and decide on the things they want to work on during the sprint. Now you see, I'm not yet calling the words product backlog and all that because I don't want to confuse you. So they pick the first few things they feel are of priority and they can work within that iteration of a particular sprint. So these first 3 things are these things that they picked here in the what color is this? Will I call it amber? Not really amber, orange like. So those are the things they've picked and decided they want to work with in the sprint. So all these guys now, these guys here, this is what they'll be working on in the sprint. So the moment they now click on start sprint, they start working on these things. They break it into tasks and start working. And they do it within the iteration of the 1 to 4 weeks. Are you understanding can somebody give me a reaction to say you're understanding this story now of how a Scrum team works? Anyone? All right. Thank you, Tony. So I will come back one step. The company, the organization, executive, stakeholder, or customer, whoever, tells us the project they want, and we will have the technical ability to work on the project. Apologies. So the stakeholders, they tell us what they want to do. They decide on the project and tell us what they want to do. They convey it to our product owner, who is supposed to be like the vision for the team. The product owner now communicates it to the team, in this case, just the business analyst, right? Just not to digress the focus of the team. So when they communicate it to the business analyst will write their stories and all the acceptance criteria, their wireframe process maps on all these stories. When they do that, then we now come for all our plannings that we'll talk about a bit in the next few minutes. And then we'll decide on the things we want to take into sprint. So the things we want to take into sprint are these things that we've decided. So this is what the team will be working on once the sprint starts. Once they start, they'll now break those things into tasks and start working on it and work on it within this duration of 1 to 4 weeks, which is probably 2-week sprint. And in fact, in the course of your internship here on, I'll be saying only 2 weeks because your internship, you do only 2 weeks for it, right? So in the course of the 2 weeks, you will start doing your deliverables of all these 3 tasks that you took in. Now, please mind you, I'm only using 3 as an example. It doesn't mean you cannot have up to 10 things to work on, right? So they work on it, and this is done every day. Now, every day, they will do a ceremony, which is this daily Scrum meeting. Remember Tosin's words? After which, they will do their review and revert back to all these guys. After which, they will do their retrospective as a team. Now, it will not make full sense to you until I go through all these ceremonies. So at the end, we'll come back and repeat this. So we'll have a good understanding of what the whole journey is again, in a better understanding. Okay? I think we need to progress because of time, but we'll come back here again to give you this journey again to understand where we are coming from. Okay? Now, before we go, I would now like to explain what this product backlog is, the sprint backlog, and the increments. Okay? So the product backlog is, in simple words, all the things we think we can do, in simple words. So when they tell you that you want to do a house, you want to build a house, what do you think you want to do? You want to do the foundation, you want to get cement, you want to build it up to lintel, you want to put the windows, you want to put the kitchenettes, the rooms, the everything. You want to set up, put your TV, everything. You see, there's so many things you think you want to do when somebody says, oh, build a house and furnish it, right? However, can you do everything at once? No. So we now pick a 2-week sprint to start. What are the first few things we want to do? So the first few things we want to do might not even be delving into the work straight away. It might be us coming together and deciding on how we want to break down that work, a bit. Because if people always think in Scrum, you don't need to plan. You plan, right? You plan, but it's just that you don't waste the whole year planning. So we come together, decide how we want to break it down, and then we take one thing at a time, and then we move forward, right? So we cannot start with painting. We cannot start with putting TV. We cannot start, but there are some key things we'll start with. Maybe the architects drawing something, us acquiring the land, everything we want to, think before we start thinking of doing the foundation, before we think of buying the blocks to raise it, everything, all those kind of things. So everything comes in a sequence, step by step. So all those things we think we want to do is the product backlog. But however, we pick the first 3 things we want to do, like acquiring the land, getting the architect to draw what we want, speaking with the customer to decide on how many bedroom flats he wants or how many bedroom house he wants and everything. These are these orange icons that we'll now take into sprint. So when we put it here and decide that we want to plan and say, okay, these 3 things, now how do we do it? You will now sit down and plan only these 3 things very well. When you agree on it, we will now start sprint. The moment all this product backlog comes into the sprint planning and we agree on them, that's the first few things that we've agreed on. The moment we click start sprint, those things convert to a sprint backlog. Then the moment these guys work on the tasks, then it becomes a finished work. So the 3 most important artifacts for you to know now is the product backlog, which is everything we think we want to do, the sprint backlog, the few things we've decided to do, and the increment at the end of the day, what we finished, the work we have completed. That's what the 3 artifacts are, right? So in reverse way, just to re-explain, the product backlog there, the list of all the new features, because I always like to use the words so you know what we're talking about. Features, right? You see it here. All the new features that we want to use to enhance this work, to do the work well. Pause, Damisola. I think you must have lost my video. Thank you. All right, thank you. You can start. All right, so all the enhancements, all the work we think we want to do, all the requirements we need to build that particular product, is compiled. Now, also note that it doesn't mean that before we start, we have to put everything. You can just put the main first priorities, It could be, up to even raising the roof. It doesn't mean by now we'll start putting TV as number 8 or putting just the first few things that even pops up in your head that you can start with are the first few things we'll put here. So all the list of all the features that we want to work on is this one, right? The moment that we now agree and come all this way to say our sprint backlog. Now, there are the set of all these PBIs. You'll be hearing PBI. PBI is product backlog items, right? So all the PBIs that we've decided to develop is what the sprint backlog is. Now the increment is those PBIs that we decided to develop and we have finished work on. Are you seeing how? Because I want to be able to ask anybody that what is product backlog and you can explain to me. I want to be able to ask what an increment is. You can tell me that, oh, all the work we finished during the sprint. It's as simple as that. You need to be able to chew it to understand. You see that this is not based on his Scrum Master or anything. Is for all you care, the guys doing this work are actually the developers, the QA, the BAs. They're the one doing this actual work, right? Discuss this. You see where this Scrum Master is just trying to make sure all these things is happening. So that's why the Scrum Master is, a lone ranger somewhere here, watching and ensuring that all these things are happening, guiding the team, nudging them, facilitating, ensuring that they don't have any, impediments or any obstruction to work and all that. You get to understand the rules as we go. I will not jump back too many things for us, okay? So we need to speed up, all right? But I hope we get the gist of what this part is about. With this, it will make it easier to be able to slide through all the screens. Okay, we can't talk about Scrum without talking about the Scrum guide. I'm not going to dwell on it because Moji explained. 17 developers created. These guys, these 17 guys, they are all developers themselves. It wasn't a Scrum Master that created it. It wasn't a PO or a business analyst. They are all developers that thought of easier way to make work, move faster for them. So that's why they came up with this, that's why they came up with the Scrum guide. So it's like the thing that I'm used, the tool I need to work, I created it myself. That's how it feels for me now to explain this. The things that I created, this is it. Okay, this is what we created, and this is how we're going to work with it. So it's more like them putting the law in their hands on how to go about things. 17 of them, the big guys amongst them is Ken Schreiber and Jeff Sutherland. We can't talk about Scrum without talking about them. So that's why they need to be mentioned. But remember vividly that Moji spoke about this. Okay, so I'm trying to rejoin, but it's not even connecting at all. So do you want to pause again? Apologies. All right, so that's about it with the Scrum guide. Now, we also cannot mention anything Agile, Scrum, and not talk about the 12 principles. So please note your first task for this is to just read through the Agile Manifesto. I will ask anybody randomly in our next Scrum Mastery or general, on any of these 12 principles. All the principles are talking about collaboration, communication, working with the stakeholders closely, delivering work iteratively, having a good mindset when you're talking of agile. That's the only thing, how to put customers first, satisfy customers and all that. So that's what the 12 principles are. And then the 4 values of agile. Please note there's agile values, there's Scrum values. Now the 4 values is where we're saying um, individual and interaction over process and tools. It doesn't mean all the ones on the right are bad, but however, this is where we are inclined to when it comes to agile. So please let's read through the Agile Manifesto. I can see that we've lost the video again. Let's read through the Scrum ceremonies itself. All right. So in Scrum, there's something we call 3 pillars of Scrum, and is referred to as empiricism. We can't also speak about Scrum without talking about empiricism. So, okay, I'm able to share again. Is it coming up? Okay, so we can proceed talking about Scrum without talking about the pillars of Scrum. So we have 3 pillars of Scrum, which is transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Remember, I told you the English word is just what it is. So when we're talking of transparency, everybody can follow all the process every step of the way. It's visible to everyone what you're doing. So as you are going into your teams, please, everything you're doing, make sure it's visible to everyone as much as you can. And also, you should disrupt your team or anything, but make sure there's visibility in everything you're doing. And one of the tools we use for visibility.
What do you want?
Do you want to mute, please? One of the tools we use for visibility is our board, our Azure board, which you'll be given access to as we go on into this Sprint Zero. We'll show you how to go about it. You invite yourselves, we'll invite you at some point, then you invite yourselves, but we'll guide you through everything. But one of the things we use to show transparency is when you can see everybody's progress of work on their board. Then even when you converse and talk to your team members, say for example, you are in a ceremony, an event or a meeting, so to say, you don't need to, hide things or lie or anything. Just be as clear as you can. I wasn't able to complete this task because of this valid reason. You don't need to lie. There's no need of being gimmick and all that. Those are simple, straight words. So it's just us making sure that all the process is visible, visible to everyone, right? Then for inspection, we also have a way of inspecting ourselves. How do we inspect ourselves? We regularly, have meetings to share the progress of what we have done. You see why John's definition has captured a lot of things, So we share the progress of the work done. We do this with our daily stand-ups when we are discussing in the stand-up. This is what I'm going to do today. This is what I did yesterday. We also used meetings like the sprint review to inspect ourselves, where we say, okay, this is what we've completed this sprint. The stakeholders will give us a feedback. And then for the adaptation side of things, when we've done something not too good during the sprint, or we did something fantastically well in the sprint, we can come to our retrospective to have a conversation on this. Now, this will make sense when you now see the agile ceremonies, but we just need to touch on them. So when you hear empiricism, it's not strange to you, right? So this is the pillar where Scrum rests on, in simple words, right? So when we talk of anything based on experience, that's what empirical is talking about, based on reality that we can hold on to. So I usually like to say this. You can use acronyms to hold this TR. So you always remember. Yes, they don't ask it in interviews anymore like before, but if it comes in handy. If somebody asks you or is mentioning someone towards this and you're not able to mention it, it's always somehow. So it's better to have it in your head. Some of us use AIT to know it, but I think I prefer AIT. But a lot of people use TR, which is better, right? To use to stick it to your brain. TR is actually better. I just use AIT because I will never forget. But it comes this other way. So that's, by the way, that's empiricism when it comes to Scrum. Yeah, and then we go to the next thing. Remember, I told you that we have 4 values of Agile, but here we have 5 Scrum values, right? So the Scrum values is courage, normal English word. The Scrum team should have courage to do the right things. Even when they go and get stuff, they should be able to do the right thing. And all these things actually are interwoven, because if one is missing, it kills the morale of the Scrum team, right? I'll explain to you as we go. You need to focus, everyone needs to focus on the job. We shouldn't be goofing around too much. We should focus on the goal that we've agreed that we want to do, so we can get a good recruitment. Remember the artifacts that we're talking about. Then commitment, people should be committed to the work. They should, have that spirit of ownership and be committed to getting things actually done. Most times you see in a team, some people will be goofing around and some people are pushing the work. It shouldn't be like that. Everybody should be pushing the work to get it done. You should be able to respect each other. You don't speak to people harshly. Maybe somebody is saying something within the team. You can't say, "Oh no, your opinion is silly," or something. No, you can't say that. You need to respect each other. You need to listen to each other. You need to be independent people on your own, capable of respecting one another. Because if I feel not respected within the team, maybe you shush me today, you shush me tomorrow. Third day, I won't even talk, even when I have a good idea. And before you know, I will lose ownership spirit. Before you know, I won't be focused. Before you know, I'll start hiding things from the team. You see why I said they are all interwoven. I won't be open anymore to the team because my morale is already down. I've been stampled upon. I've been shoved aside. So please, no matter how you sense people that, oh, this one might not be, strong at this time, this one might not be. You don't trample on people. You don't try to work on people. You don't show yourself that, oh, I'm a know-it-all or something. Oh, no, not me. You need to respect everybody. You need to be humble. Even sometimes when you get lost, because our characters sometimes shows, not because we're bad people, but because we are compulsive people sometimes, we're strong-willed people. Sometimes you need to manage yourself when it comes to, working with teams. Manage yourself. When you see that wants to show, take a step back. If need be, you might need to apologize, but if there's no need, you can just, tell, "Oh, thanks for your patience. Okay, do you want to repeat yourself?" Just take your time to listen to everyone. Don't shush people. Be open. The Scrum team should be open to, everyone. Say the truth to the stakeholders. Say the truth about your work. Any challenge you're facing or any problem, say it out. You don't need to wait or say, "Oh, let me hide it." Then when it's last minute, you now say it. Does it make sense? No, it doesn't. Right? If you're having issue in third day in the sprint and you are keeping it to yourself, you're not open, then on the 10th day of sprint, when we're wrapping up, is when you speak. How do you think we will not have that increment in that sprint? So try and be open as much as you can. Those are the values that Scrum also, rests on. All right, so let's go to what the Scrum team is. I've already mentioned this, so I'm not going to dwell on this. I've told you the Scrum team, this is just the Scrum team, the dev, product owner, and Scrum master. They decide what to do. This focuses on, makes people focus on work better, right? And these ones, they do the actual work. So these are the real superpower rangers within the team, I must say. So virtually everybody on this call, you fall into this category. So you need to know your what as a team member. Remember, you should be able to self-organize when it comes to Scrum. You need to be able to work dependently and independently. You understand? You need to work with each other and also be independent, because guess what? When you're getting into these roles, they are picking you as experienced. Most of us, if 50 of us gets role, maybe only one will not go in as experienced. So when you need to show your experience when you get into the team by being able to manage yourself. That's the self-organization part of things, right? You need to be able to work from cross-functionally. You need to be able to, without being told, the actual things to do. You should be able to push yourself. That's the Scrum team, and that's all of us on this call. And we're going to get there shortly, right? So please just put your mind to it. To see all these things we are saying, sometimes it can be like a lot of old jargons, right? But with time, if you listen to it over and over again, you're working within the process, you start getting your vibes, right? So what is the ceremony in itself? Remember our guys explained what the ceremony was earlier. So they are just meetings in simple terms. Scrum ceremonies are meetings that are organized to ensure the team is sync. That's all. So just reading exactly what we have on here, they are meetings specifically organized to ensure the Scrum team are in sync with executing the development of a product or a project, right? So when you want to develop something, you come together, organize yourself, you are in oneness as a team, and then you execute it. So in that way, the way you can do it is via meetings. You talk to each other and make that progress. So the Scrum ceremonies, Scrum team, they get work done in a structured manner. It's not like this one does it this way, this one has another experience elsewhere, you do it this way. No, we come together to synchronize and we do it in a structured manner so that the set expectation that we have set at the start of the sprint. You remember at the start of the sprint, we had all our product backlog items, all the things we thought we wanted to do. Then the moment we wanted to start sprinting itself, we picked the priorities and the things we can do and have the capacity to do it within the team. We picked those things and took it into sprint. Into sprint means into the period of the 2 weeks we want to work, right? We've taken those work into the period of the 2 weeks that we want to work. So those work that we are trying to do, make sure we get it done. Make sure we do that increment. Make sure we complete the job. So how do we do that? We need to do it in a structured manner, set expectation. So all these ceremonies will empower the team to be able to collaborate effectively and drive results. So that's why we do this ceremony. Also, they are done within the sprint. Remember, iteration is the sprint on sprint on sprint on sprint on sprint on sprint. Sprint is just that duration of the 2 weeks that you're working on something. And when you're done with that, you go to another 2 weeks duration. That's another sprint. When you're done on that, but the iteration is the collectiveness of everything, right? All the sprints in bits. So, what are those ceremonies? What are those ceremonies? That's where we're going to now. So the ceremonies are all these ones, but I'll just go to the next page and take it one after the other. So I've mentioned the purpose of the ceremony. There's no need of flogging this. It is important because we want to ensure the team is in sync, the team is able to collaborate, we are able to set expectation and measure that expectation we have set. Because if we say you should do this, we need to measure the thing. Do you have the capacity? Do you have enough effort within the sprint to do those things, your estimation and all that? We'll get to tell you estimation, but I'll not bring it so much into this right now. So the whole idea, making sure that we carry out all the work in a structured manner, not how we like, not what we know alone. No, we're coming together as a team to work to. That's the idea of doing all these Scrum ceremonies, and of course, for us to get successful results at the end of the day. That's the idea. Now, the ceremonies in itself, what are those ceremonies? Okay. So officially, please listen to me carefully. Listen to me carefully, please. Up until this stage, do we have at least a bit of understanding before we delve into the ceremony? Because this is the real deal of the day, and we have 35 minutes to go through all this. And to an extent, I'm giving you a bit of spice here and here as regards this. So anyone, can anyone confirm that to an extent they have a bit of understanding first of the basic knowledge? Anyone? All right, Adejari. Thank you, Falari. Okay, all right, so that's fine. So the ceremony is in itself. Now, officially, please listen well. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Eva. Officially, we have 4 ceremonies, but how many can we see on the board? I'm happy for us to echo. From here, we'll be echoing a bit. How many ceremonies do we have here? Quickly. Let's go. 5. I'm happy for you to unmute and speak, but yes, I've seen it 5. Okay, so 5 ceremonies are what we have here. But officially, we have 4 ceremonies, meaning that there's one ceremony somewhere that is not an actual ceremony, but is a ceremony. I've never said it in that way. Okay. So officially in the Scrum guide, remember the 17 developers that created a guide. So this is the juice I'm telling you. This is what we're doing for today, right? So the Scrum guide says we have 4 major ceremonies. So which is the sprint planning, the daily stand-up, sprint review, and retrospective. Now, if you do not know anything today, please, Damsola, can you munch this page and drop it on the chat, please? Thank you. So I'm going to give us the next 5 minutes on this page to give us a bit of understanding. So when we get to the written part, we'll just flip through it as quickly as possible. Okay, so this is now the story as regards all this planning now. At the start of a sprint, now today is sprint 0, right? I'm not saying, I know we are in sprint 0, but I'm just saying, let's say we have a 2-week sprint. On day 1 of the sprint, we do sprint planning. Because as usual, if you fail to plan now, you have planned to fail already. So we do sprint planning, and who are those that should be in that sprint planning? Everybody within the team, which is the PO, the Scrum Masters, and the developers. Those are the people that will be within that meeting. Everybody in the team. That's the sprint planning. Now, remember I also explained to you that developers can be UX, UI designers, front, back end developers, the business analysts at this point, right? So the business analysts, they fall within the cadre of the PO sort of, right? But at this time, let's just take them here. The testers, they are the ones that fall within these developers, right? So sprint planning. Sprint planning is the first ceremony of the sprint. It's very vital that this team holds this ceremony. Now, some teams will say, oh, we don't do the planning, we just delve into it, blah, 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 blah. How can you call yourself a Scrum team when you're not doing all these ceremonies that you need to do to call yourself Scrum? So all the ceremonies are very important to do. So sprint planning, what is the idea of this sprint planning? Where we sit together to discuss all what we want to do within the sprint. We break it down, we give efforts to it, that's we estimate it, we break it to smaller tasks that we can finish within the sprint, we prioritize it, we make sure that the person handling it has the technical skills of doing it. So we make sure that we plan properly, right? Now, all these things that I've said, remember I told you that this is the first event of the sprint, right? The first ceremony. However, I will jump and come back to this ceremony, sprint planning and sprint refinement, where I said it's not an actual ceremony, but it's an important ceremony. Now, if you do this on the first day of sprint and you meet any gallop or any holder and everything, you might not be able to start your sprint, right? But however, if you have done this sprint refinement before we start this sprint, if you have done this sprint refinement before we start this sprint, then you will not fall into the cadre of not being able to start your sprint, because all the things that happened here would have happened here, and you would have understood that, okay, we can progress. You just come here to finalize the planning and start sprint. Hence, why people say this is not a ceremony, because it is done before the sprint starts. So these are the actual ceremony that happens during the current sprint you are in. So this one will happen before the sprint starts. So it's just like a separate meeting you have to do before you commence any sprint. So that's why they always say it's not really part of the ceremonies. But a lot of people have hugged it part of the ceremony because it's important. Yes, please.
Sorry, I don't know if I may. Can I ask a question?
Please ask quickly.
All right, quick one. Does this the sprint refinement you're just talking about right now could be regarded as a say maybe when you talk about maybe like mobile apps and things like that, is this where all the stakeholders involved in the project will discuss, just like you mentioned before we come over to the sprint planning, as in all these little things that would have happened or that might have or that need to happen during the project would have happened in the sprint refinement, and then now start at the sprint planning and then now tailored.
Okay. I'm inclined to tell you no, but a yes to somewhere, right? Now, there are other ad hoc meetings that doesn't have this title of being a ceremony that will happen, right? Even before this sprint refinement happens. That's where you now have all those stakeholders, maybe give the PO what we need to do. Sometimes they invite the business analyst to. There are some teams that you don't probably even have a PO that is the business analyst straight away, or vice versa. It depends on what you meet. Now, there are some ad hoc meetings. Ad hoc is like additional meetings or additional important meetings that you can do, right? Those meetings will happen before we now come together to refine what we have done. So when those meetings happen, let's say there's a vague meeting somewhere here that has happened that involves all the stakeholders you are talking about, including maybe the main stakeholder or the project owner or the project sponsor or anybody within the team, right? Outside of the team, rather, that has told us, that has given us the project to do, or the guy with the money, anyways, that has told us this project to do. He's facing only the PO here, or the PO and the BAs to get the requirements. Now, the POs and the BAs will come back, have a meeting, and create all those stories, which is that PBI, the list of the 8 things I showed you. When they create it, they will now or arrange it according to priority. You see that our meeting has not started. When they arrange it, they will now call all of us within the team, which is usually now the developers that are going to develop it, the QA that is going to test it. They will now call us to come for this refinement, to come and refine that thing they've written down. Because they need to write the user story. Remember Uzo took your user story, acceptance criteria, all those things. They need to do all those things before they call us. They will do all those things and put it on the board, like the Jira board or the Azure DevOps in this case. They will put it on the board before they will now call the team to come and do this sprint refinement. Something has to be down before you come and refine something. You get the gist? Something has to be down before you come and refine the thing. So that's where refinement is coming in. So when you come to this refinement meeting, that means PO don't do work finish. BA they finish work, you understand? So they will now call us to come and have this discussion. And then when we come to have this discussion, we will now break it down and say, okay, what are the details we need to add? What are the descriptions we need to do? What is the size of this story? What is the everything that this story is we need to break down and do? I can see I've lost screen, but let's proceed. All right. So all the sizing, making sure that you are able to estimate properly, everything, we'll do it in this refinement. We will do all the talk, all the yada yada yada. Because if you do your refinement properly, your sprint planning will be a breeze. You understand? So this happens sometimes within the sprint, but not the current sprint. It happens sometimes within the previous sprint before we get into a new sprint. You get what I mean? So the refinement is done outside of the current sprint. So you have an ad hoc meeting where all the things you have said will happen. Then they put it together, put it on the board, then call the team. Oh yeah, come and see. This is what they say we should do this time around, though. Yeah. I'm breaking it down so that you understand. Please mind me. Just mind my grammar, just to bring it home. So those people will call us, oh yeah, we are ready. They've told us all the priorities we need to do, and we've written it down for you. Yeah, everybody come together. Let's walk through this. Okay, let's see the details. Okay, so while you are looking at the details, a tester, that's the QA or the software tester, right? You're thinking, okay, this thing they've written down, is it testable? Is this something that when the developer finishes the development of this thing, will I be able to test it? Okay, if it's a yes for the developer will allow that story to come into sprint because he knows that he'll be able to test it. The developer, on the other hand, do I have the technical skills to create this thing that they said I should do? Those are the things that will be flying in everybody's head. You see why this meeting is important? Because if you are doing all those ones in the start of the sprint and the developer finds out that, I cannot do the work, how will you start sprint? So hence the reason for the refinement. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Chris.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. So the sprint planning, now I will now say a common factor in everything. In every ceremony, these are the three people that should be in them: PO, Scrum Master, the developers, except for the review, where we now have the stakeholder. That's, I've gone to do all the things you said I should do, then I'm coming back to you to say, see what I've done. The stakeholder will now say, oh, I like what you have done. Or, oh, I like what you have done, but can you change this? Or, the stakeholder would have told you what they want in the first place. Maybe the stakeholder wants, I want sky blue. This blue here is sky blue. And then they now do the website or something, or create what they want. And then he now sees the sky blue and looks at it from corner eyes and say, I don't really like this sky blue. Can we test this other royal blue? I know this is not royal blue, but can we test this other shade of blue? And then we'll take it back as a feedback and adapt to it and make the changes, then revert back to them. You understand? So that's when we need stakeholders the most. But sometimes people invite stakeholders for one or two things, but they are irrelevant. But let's just stick to what it should be, right? In all the ceremonies, it's the Scrum team. These people make up the Scrum team. They're the ones that in all the ceremonies cross, but only in the review that we need the stakeholders, because you need to feed back to the people that say go and do something, right? Okay, so let's start from the beginning again. The sprint planning, the first ceremony, everybody in the team agrees to what they want to do and start sprints, right? That's the sprint planning. I know I've lost, but let's proceed. Now, from the day 2 of sprints, we now start having our daily stand-up. Because on the day you are doing sprint planning, you don't need to have a stand-up on that day. Please note that. But from day 2 of when we start the sprint now, we'll have what we call daily stand-up. The daily stand-up is the ceremony where the team comes to synchronize all the effort of the work they've done. So there's a breakdown of what the things that you're supposed to ask, but just to avoid boredom for your team. You don't need to always ask that, what are these 3 things before they answer you, right? So the things that you must know
again.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
The things that you must know is, what did you do yesterday? That's the previous day. What were the development work or the testing work or whatever? What did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And do you have any impediment so far that will obstruct your progress of work? Those 3 questions are very key when it comes to daily stand-up, right? So like I said, every member comes to synchronize their efforts and they ensure that people are doing the right thing. This is where accountability sets in. Here, you are being accountable to yourself. Imagine I come to the meeting today and say, Ola, I want to work on A. I come to meeting tomorrow, I want to work on A. Next tomorrow, I want to work on A. Won't somebody will say, but you've been saying you've been working on A. You understand? So even me, I'll be shy to say A for the 5 days of the week. I will say A today, and then tomorrow, I will tell you, I have done A. That's what I did yesterday. Today, I want to do B. But next tomorrow now, if I'm not able to do B because of one reason or the other, now the part of the transparency, remember our pillars, I'll say, I wasn't able to do P because of so. However, I have made this progress on B. I'm waiting to get this data to complete it or something. You explain yourself in a very simple and concise manner. Not that you hold the whole team ransom and spend 100. Remember, I will tell you the duration. So you remember why you cannot hold the team ransom to talk for 1 hour. Okay? Then the sprint review, I've explained it, all the things we've done, because this happens every day, right? So all the things we've done every day, every day to the last day of sprint, we'll now come and show all the things we have completed. Please take note of the word completed. We'll now come and show the stakeholders. The stakeholders will now give us a constructive feedback. So this ceremony happens on the last day of sprint, and it's the last, ceremony before the very last one, which is the retrospective. So this too happens on the last day of sprint. Remember, this happens on the first day of sprint. This happens every day of the sprint. This happens before the sprint starts. Then this happens on the last day of sprint, and this happens on the last day of sprint, right? So for the sprint review, when you're done and you've gotten all your constructive feedback, you've shown all the PBIs, you've done a presentation of the work you've done, it's more of a show and tell, right? You said, okay, this is the goal we wanted to do, and this is what we've achieved. You've gotten all your feedback from stakeholders. All right, you end the meeting. You can go for a tea break or a 1 or 2 hours break, then you now come back and retrospect. Retrospect, like the word is when your team comes back to reflect on what they have done previously during the sprint. So at the end of the day, okay, what went well during the sprint? What didn't go well? Is there anything we can improve? What are the action plans we take home? That's what you do within retrospective. Now, all the things I've mentioned to you, it will be demoed to you tomorrow, Wednesday. You will see a role play of all this, so it will bring it home for you. However, I'll advise you, even if you need to skip some part, please try and listen to the ceremonies over again, because it will help you understand tomorrow's role play. Tomorrow will be a total role play, right? Where we're going to have the Scrum Ceremonies workshop. So we'll bring in our mentors and some of our buddies to come and role play for us on all these ceremonies. So just for clarity's sake, sprint planning, first day of sprint. You see, I'm dwelling on this page over and over again, because when I get to the remaining slides, it's a breeze. Sprint planning happens first day of sprint, and all the participants are the Scrum team. And it is done in 4 hours within a 2-week sprint. However, please listen, even if it's done in 4 hours during a 2-week sprint, it doesn't mean you do it for 4 hours. Because you have done this. You see why they always say refinement is not actually, because if you've done 2 hours of refinement, for example, why do you want to do 2 hours of sprint planning? My sprint planning can even take me 30 minutes or something, because I've done all the work during refinement. So when we say all this time, it doesn't mean you have to finish the time that we have to sit down there for the full 4 hours or the full 2 hours so that we can say, yes, we have done what we need to do. Don't worry, I'll share my screen again. So we'll say we've done what we need to do. Please, you don't need to do that. When you're done with a meeting, don't keep people and don't make things redundant. Just release your team, right? Let your team progress with their day and start working on other things. So that's sprint planning for you. Now, daily stand-up. Daily stand-up, I told you, is done every day, and it is done for 15 minutes. Please don't go and tell anybody elsewhere that it's done for 20 minutes or 40 minutes. But most times, the explanation is very key. If you have a very large team and you say, yeah, we know stand-up is for 15 minutes. However, sometimes we can exceed time or even, have extra time afterwards. It depends on our discussion during the team. But the team is very comfortable with it. But I'd rather not even go through all that stress. We hold it for 15 minutes. That's it. So why I'm now saying, you can imagine a team of 10, and the first person speaking use 3 minutes to talk. The next person use 3 minutes. The next person use 2 minutes. 8 minutes is already gone. Please, you need the remaining 7 people that want to share 7. You understand what I mean? The more reason why you should be straight to the point. What went well? What didn't go well? What did I do yesterday rather? What did I do? What am I planning to do today? And do I have any blockers or any impediments that will not make my work go smoothly today? Say, for example, I have IT issues or something. And one thing I tell everyone is, with you knowing that you might have IT issues or something, if we're starting today now and it's 9 a.m., we just finished our stand-up, and you have IT issues now, don't wait till the next stand-up to say I have IT issue. Escalate immediately within your team. That's why you have teams to discuss. You have different, means of escalating your issues. You can even go straight to the IT. Remember, you can be self-organized. You can just go straight IT. I have this issue. They jump on the screen and resolve your issue for you. Please do not wait. Or you have a blocker or a reason why something cannot go. You can ask your colleague. If you're there physically, you just stand up and say, "Hi guys. Okay, can anybody help me with this?" Straight away. Or you throw it in your team chat and somebody will help you out. Like now for you guys, WhatsApp, just put it on WhatsApp. Guys, please, does anybody have this? So somebody will help you. That's collaboration. And I've seen that some of you have started doing that. You don't know you started doing some of your ceremonies with style, right? So when you're in a daily stand-up, please don't spend 5 hours talking. 1 minute, you're done, explain yourself and move forward, right? Thank you. Then the refinements, remember, is done pre-sprint. We talk about all the details, description, we prioritize, we break the stories into smaller pieces and all that. Maybe a story is too big to finish within the sprint. You can split the story into two and take up what you can within the sprint. And then we now go to the sprint review. In the sprint review, after all this has happened for 2 weeks, on the last day of the 2 weeks, which is day 10 officially, if you look at 5 working days, 2 week sprint, that's day 10. In the morning, you now have this sprint review. Now, also, before you create any meeting, always remember you might have colleagues in diaspora, you might have colleagues in India, you can have colleagues in Canada. You need to look at their timing before you guys agree on this time, right? Always do that. I just thought to mention. Don't say, because we are here, we'll put it here. How about if it's midnight for somebody else? So let's be, let's be team focused, right? Team centric in this case, so to say. So this last day of sprint, you go speak to your stakeholders, you tell them completed work, you show them, if possible, you display the website, show this, we've done this, we've improved on everything. They will give you a feedback and tell you constructive feedback on what you've done, what you've not done, and everything, right? Then the retrospective is now where you sit down, chill, and discuss. Now, this is a no tense meeting at all. Now, you shouldn't lose focus. This is where you probably, when you start the retrospective, you might play games, icebreakers. Remember, we've worked hard for 2 weeks, yeah? So we now come to this retrospective. We gist a bit. Guys, you gist. Sometimes people even go out for outing, instead of sitting in the office to do retrospective. You play some games, icebreakers, but make sure that you break the periods of, say your retrospective is 1.5 hours, maybe the first 30 minutes for all this yada yada I'm saying. Then the main 1 hour, you need to discuss the actual reason you're here. Don't ever forget yourself, when you're in a retreat. The reason you are here is to discuss the pain that has gone on within the team or the good things that we should keep doing, like that. I'll show you examples of all this in these coming slides, right? So we have about 15 minutes to wrap this up, but I hope you get the gist, okay? So I'll be moving forward. I know I've lost you guys, but we'll be moving forward gradually. Okay, it's coming right up. So I will do this. So there are some things that the ceremonies must have, right? All ceremonies, you must time box your ceremonies. Remember that everything is 2 week sprint. Everything is within 2 weeks. So in that 2 weeks, when you're doing your stand-up, it doesn't mean you go and do stand-up for 1 hour. It's supposed to be 15 minutes. You must make sure that you time box properly. You understand? You must make sure you time box properly. You must make sure that Damisola, is that you trying to share screen, please? Okay, sorry. You must make sure you time box properly. You must make sure that all the meetings you have are valuable and is adding value to your team, right? You must make sure you prepare for every meeting. Don't go and just feel that, because I do stand-ups every day, I don't need to prepare. Even if it's 5 minutes, just try and prepare so that you are sure that you ask the right questions. Because if you do not prepare, remember somebody has told you, I want to do A yesterday. If the person comes and say, I want to do A again, and you don't remember because you haven't prepared for the meeting, you need to prepare. This goes more to even the Scrum Master, preparing ahead. Then you, the DA, BA, before you do that, you need to also prepare that, okay, what's going on? Okay, I need to prepare, make sure that I have all the right things I want to say, so I will not be going left and right and just be talking, waste 3 minutes. But if you have your pointers in front of your eyes already, just say, okay, I did this, I did that, okay, this is what I am, this is my plan for today, say go away, right? You don't need to waste time, just touch and go. That's the idea of daily stand-up. All the other meetings too, anything that is irrelevant, just let go. Just go for the relevant things. Then make sure that every meeting is purpose-driven and make sure that your team has team acceptance for all the meetings. They must accept that meeting in the sense that if they don't find value in something, they won't accept the team. You understand as the thing as time goes by. Even your guys within now, you understand that as time goes by, that some people will lose interest and they will not be able to join the ceremonies. You need to pull them back. You need to work with them. So that's the reason we are doing things like that. Someone else is sharing. Okay, Damsala, do you want to go to the next? I've gone to the next one. I need to make it. You need to put it in presentation mode. Thank you. Hello, Dami.
Hi, yeah, I was trying to mute my pause the recording. Yeah, it's in presentation mode, but I think I need to stop sharing and share again. Let me
Please.
try to do that.
Thanks a lot. This will help me speed up.
No worries. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to share my whole screen. Let me see. Okay, can you see it now in presentation mode?
Yes.
Okay.
Keep pressing. I'm not sure why it's a bit not synced for you. All those were in the middle. Even currently now,
Oh, okay, it's not synced. Oh no.
it's not synced for you.
Okay, what slide would you like me to share? Here? Hello?
Yeah, I'm with you. All right.
Okay, is this where we're at now?
No, it's
Sprint
fine.
plan?
Yes, that's where we're at. So, I've spoken about all the meetings being time boxed. You need to prepare for the meeting and all that. So we're going straight to the sprint planning. Let's go, right? So remember, I already told you. So from here, we're breezing. In the next 5 minutes, we'll run through everything. Remember, we've told you most of it is 2 hours. The refinement is 2 hours. Sprint planning 2 hours. The retrospective 1.5 hours. The review can be 2 hours. The daily stand-up is 15 minutes. So I've already explained everything. That is the first event. The sprint planning, the team determines the product backlog items, the things they want to do and take into sprint. Remember, next, keep going. We'll be moving very fast. Remember the importance of the sprint planning. It reduces the risk of failure, understanding and define the scope of delivery and how to accomplish the work. We're all sitting down to say, okay, how do we want to carry out this work? So we'll come together with the backlog, we'll move straight to the sprint planning meeting, and then we'll now decide on our sprint backlog, which is all the tasks we need to do. Next slide, please. Keep going, keep going, keep going. All right. The daily stand-up. Keep going, just keep going. The daily stand-up is 15 minutes time box. Remember, I mentioned this. It's 15 minutes stand-up, same place, same time. The reason for the same place, same time is if it's in your people's mind that is the same place and the same time, it helps them to remember. Because if you're telling me meeting is okay, imagine meeting to be 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. today, tomorrow, 10 p.m., next tomorrow, 8 p.m., next tomorrow, you tend to forget all the meetings, right? But if it's same place, same time, the meaning of the same place is usually maybe if you're doing it virtually, maybe the same link or something, or if you're there physically, you're using room 201 for something, or you're using room 10 for something, you go to that particular room. People don't need to think, oh, where are we having the stand up today? Is it room 10? We already know it's room 10, so we're walking straight to room 10. You get what I mean? So that's the meaning of the same place, same time. It's usually facilitated by the Scrum Master, and the questions are the things I've already explained to you, that what did you do yesterday, what did you do today, and any impediment. But usually when I'm doing that, I will just tell my team, please can you give us an update? I don't need to always say this. Can you give us an update? But if you're saying something, I'll be like, oh, remember yesterday you mentioned, then I'll refer the person to say, oh, yes, I was able to have the meeting with the person as explained, and we're able to achieve this. As a Scrum Master, for example, you need to have probing questions. And even within the team, as team leads or even members of the team, you should be able to speak to your team members, during the stand-up, to ask them questions. That's what makes the synchronization worth it. That's what makes the accountability part worth it. There's one more word there, right? So we use it to inspect. Remember the inspection, inspect and adapt. We use it for quick exchange of information. We use it to identify obstacles. Obstacles and impediments are things that will not make you progress on your work. Like remember I said IT issues, or maybe an application is not working. Maybe you want to use Jira or Azure board and it's not working at the time. It's an impediment for you. Those are the things. Then all the Scrum team are the attendees, as I've mentioned. Next slide, please. Now, the importance is just to help us inspect. I've mentioned this. It improves our transparency within the team. It helps the team collaborate, share their progress of work, and then peer-to-peer accountability. Then you can also self-organize as a team. So we're going straight to sprint review. Remember, I told you sprint review is done at the end of all the ceremonies. It's the second to the last ceremony, but it's done on the last day of ceremony, right? We go and give feedback. We go and show the stakeholders the completed work we have done. So they'll give us constructive feedback. Then we go back and adapt to those feedbacks. So if they say they don't want this, we'll go back and adapt to the feedback. Then the review. We also have it helps us review the work that has been completed. I think I've mentioned this already. Then sprint review. Next slide, please. Importance of sprint review provides the routine status updates, right? So our status update as a team, it helps us ensure that we are taking in the right product that the users they need, or like the sponsor. There's a product that person needs, right? But we need to be user-centric when we are doing that product. Because guess what? If I create a website for somebody, is it the person that will be using the website? No, it's users that will be using the website. So you need to find that trick. Yes, it should be what that person wants, don't get me wrong, because we need to understand what the person is trying to achieve in the first place. But we are experts in our field. We can guide the person, but always think on the user side of things, on how it will be seamless for the users, easy to use, of course. They can achieve what they want to achieve when they get there. If I get to a website that I want to watch a movie on, so you use the website. You use the website. Sorry, apologies. You use the website. It helps to inspect the outcome of the sprint, right? So let's move on. Retrospective. Retrospective is held at the end. Now, this is the final ceremony. It's held at the final end of the sprint. This is the last ceremony. Okay, I'm proceeding. So retrospective. A retrospective is a meeting that is held at the end of the sprint, where the team reflects on the past sprints. So when the sprint has ended, the team will reflect on the past sprints and identify ways they can improve themselves. Remember, I told you that no matter the icebreaker or all the plays that we do during retrospective, you should not forget the main work of the day. See all these things on the screen now. You know, they are giving, okay, what are the things that did not go? You see this thing, thunderstorm. They are the things that did not go well during the course of the sprint. They were not able to code easily. The code was falling behind. They had conflicting images. They had parts that are not coming together. They had lack of cohesion, communication gap between the team, time management was, and at the same time, see the good things they said. Oh, they were able to document the code. They were able to start early. They were able to communicate with the tasks, at least within the team. Maybe this communication now, when they explain what it is now, it might be communication with external stakeholders. They were able to, review. So all these things for them are the main thing, the main reason why they're in that retrospective in the first place. So you explain yourself, the things that went well and the things that did not go well. So this retrospective sample is what we call hot air balloon, right? So hot air balloon, the hot air balloon, when hot air balloon in itself, then there's thunderstorm and there's rising sun. So the things that are good are things you put in the rising sun. So there are different formats for retrospective, actually. Different formats. You just take the one your team likes. Sometimes when it's around Valentine, you can do a Valentine retrospective. Always make sure that you keep things interesting. When it comes to retrospective, there's a lot to say about retrospective, but we'll try not to do it all. But remember, it's only for that end of that sprint. Sometimes you can do end of quarter retrospective, but the retrospective is when that sprint ended, or all the things that did not go well in that sprint doesn't mean you should go and look for the thing that did not go well last year. Remember, the things that within this sprint that did not go well, right? Those are the things that you work on when it comes to, retrospective. Those are the things you discuss there. Then the ceremony helps find and figure out ways to improve the team. Remember the transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Retrospective is the adaptation part of things. Even the review, you adapt. Then I already mentioned you have icebreakers, you have read-through and everything. There's no how we have to exit time. So importance of retrospective. Please move to the importance. The Scrum team inspects their activities, develops a plan for the next sprint. Then they have opportunity to evaluate what is working effectively for the team, what went well, what didn't go well, what could be worked upon, how they will improve themselves. Then at the end of that retrospective, they must have action plan. Say, for example, there's a code that has not been working well and everything. They will have an action plan. Okay, let's put this person in charge to ensure we resolve this issue of this code, right? So you go back. It's not like we just come discuss and go back. No, you go back and action some of the things that are very important to the team, and then take it on with them. You practice all these things. You see all this plenty talk I'm talking, you will practice it. So please try and put your all when you start this sprint fully, right? So you can have a good understanding of what is going on, okay? So you also increase quality and effectiveness of work like that, then allows team members to freely share their opinion. You see, in retrospective, you can go in anonymously and say, okay, we want to drop those. You see those tickets I showed you earlier, those sticky notes, some people can be anonymous, but sometimes you don't need to be anonymous if you put your team in a position that everybody, adheres to that Scrum value. We respect each other's opinion. So it doesn't really matter what anybody says. You can speak freely within your team, and please, there's a difference between speak freely and bad behavior. Bad behavior is, I want to speak freely, I want to say what. Speak freely is explaining what you think did not go well, still in a professional manner. I thought I needed to say that because I know that things like this happen. People use bad behavior to replace speaking freely. No, you need to always remember to be professional. You can goof around. You see how we goof around in the meetings. We can goof around, play around with things and all that. But, even if you goof around and do anything, always remember that you're in a professional setting. You are working at the moment, right? So as you're working at the moment, you must always have that in mind, that you're talking to a fellow colleague. Please address yourself as so, not Mr. This, Mr. That. You are colleagues. Speak freely with each other, blend, make work seamless for you guys, all right? So now I have an exercise that I would like to go through with you guys, but I will probably just ask in a random time later. I like to just use this one. If you you can go to the next slide. If you had a superpower or you're a superhero in relation to these 2 weeks you spent in Blue Sky now, what will you be and why? Usually people pick different things. Some people say they want to be Flash. Some people say they want to be what's the boss of the X-Men. Different things. Those are the things you do during retrospective. So in retrospective, this is another example. You can say, okay, if I had $1 million, what will you do and what will you spend it on? The day I asked this question, I did not know people like money a lot in my team. I thought I was the only one that liked money, but people like money more than me. Then this is another example. So I decided I want to make people jealous today. So please, apologies that we're already exceeding time, but I'll try and wrap up as fast as we can. Then we'll just take questions and call it a day, right? So pick a wheel. This is just, let's say you want to do a retrospective now. You want to call upon somebody to do something. So if everybody is shying away from the thing, you can just use a pick a wheel to decide on who. Or maybe you guys just want to keep it interesting so that, okay, nobody raise hands. Let's just do a pick a wheel and then we'll just pick somebody. So you just click on this wheel and it spins and lands on somebody. So of course I put all few of us in admin. This is not all of us. This is few of us in admin. Then anybody that their name popped into my head, I put it there. Then later, I won't lie, I started remembering 𝐂𝐎𝐍𝐍𝐄𝐂𝐓. I said, oh, and I already captured this screen and put. So I said people will be jealous today. All the people that have your name here, that means I don't like you. Let me just say it. All the people, if you know your name is not here, that means I love you. That's the only way I can make it work.
That's not true. You like us.
No, I don't like you. I don't like you. All right. So this is picker, we just use it to pick. You know, the first day I introduced this into my team, like 2 years ago, they were like, oh, you know, it caused a lot of scream. They were excited. You know, they were waiting. Who will it drop on? You understand? You know, it just drop. Everybody just shout, hey, Amelia. You know, everybody just shout like that. Hey, it has dropped on Eva. It has dropped on Larry, like that. And then we'll now ask Larry the question we want to ask, just to keep things spicy and interesting. Yeah. All right, so that's that. You want to go to the next? Okay. So this is another example of things you can use for review. You know, spot the difference. So we'll just say, okay, in 30 seconds, spot 20 differences here. First, you just say, okay, the cake, this one has pink leg, this one has this one. There are 2 spoons here, this one there are 2 like that. You quickly do it in 30 seconds. Just games. The first 30 it could be tongue twisters, red or yellow lorry, or like a pan tropicana, anything. You know. Then this is the retrospective in a glance. Next 2 slides. I've done. Next 2 slides, please. Okay. So sprint retrospective, what went well. Remember I told you the cadence is usually what went well, what didn't go well, your action plan, things you need to improve. But however, you can choose different, in fact, as we are like this tomorrow or anytime, just go say retrospective samples, just put it there. You will go blind. There's, you know, continue doing, stop doing, mad, glad, sad. Those ones are even typical normal ones. But my team, I'll show you the one my team uses. My team will use hot air balloon. And hot air balloon, remember that hot air balloon was just 3 things. For my team, we use 6 things for our own hot air balloon, which is sunrise. If anybody's got a bright idea, if anybody for the hot air, what is putting us together, what's keeping us together as a team, you know. Then thunderstorm, what are the obstacles we are facing? Then usually any questions, if anybody has any, you know, questions they want. Sandbags are the things pulling us down as a team. Recognition, we never end the sprint without recognizing each other. Oh, Damisola helped me share screen the other day when I was in a tight corner. Eva helped me introduce the other guys into the team and help them settle in. Larry showed me the so. This way you have to recognize each other. You know, this one my team likes the most, but doesn't mean, of course, it's far from the best. There are lots of different ones, right? So there's the roseboard. For reasons beyond me, my team doesn't even really like roseboard, and I like roseboard because it just tells you our small wins. You see, there's nothing as good as small wins. When someone wins small win, next slide please. When someone has small wins, it's good. Your board, different things. So different retrospective. I always mention this one too, that the day I used this glad, mad, sad, and I used football team, I regretted it. My team beat me. That's the only, as in, they finished me. That what gave me the audacity to say I want to recognize Man City? What gave me the audacity that Liverpool is sad? Chelsea of all people glad? How? No, we didn't use this though. We broke bottle that day, you know. Different things. Just anything to excite your team for the first 30 minutes of the session. So I also used the example of, you know, this is within BlueSky that we did this. This is Abimbola, Moji, Bolu, like that. We used, you know, just a bit as a sample, you know, just to show you. And this is when I made taking back action plan. We realized that, oh, maybe people don't have enough knowledge. So we're going to do training on Agile. We are going to improve how we disseminate information. These are the things we got from this. You understand? So you have to have an action plan to get from what you've done. So the focus is not just saying what, you know, you've done that went well and the things that didn't go well, but you need to have an action plan. Right? Then these are the tools you can use for retrospective. Like the one I showed you before, this is a Lucid Spark, right? So that's Lucid Spark is a whiteboard. You can use the Azure. We'll show you how to use Azure for retrospective too. So you just learn, you know, you're still in 1920. You know, go to the next page, tools for retrospective. So Miro, Mural, some people even use Mentimeter, anything you can use it for retrospective. That's our next slide, please. You can use it for retrospective. But the current one I showed you was Lucid Spark. So then we go to refinement. So for refinement, remember I told you that refinement, the team looks at the product backlog and decides whether to further decompose those stories for the next sprint. Remember, I've been mentioning since that when it comes to refinement is you know, the things you do before the sprint, where you dissect that story and everything, you decompose it. So we'll know that it is something you can start and finish. And the PO will prioritize. Always note that the PO is the one that prioritizes, not the BA, not the QA. It's the PO. We'll put a PO in your team that will help you with all this prioritization. The team will estimate, will tell you what estimation is about. Putting estimation today will, you know, be, but in quick words, estimation is the amount of effort it requires you to do something. You see, I'm giving you guys quick English to understand this. Estimate. Okay, where the word estimate, the effort is to take me to do something. That's what estimation is about. But we'll take you through estimation. You will estimate yourself, you test it yourself, you see how it goes. That's why I like this internship. You have a feel of everything, so you understand. So when you get out there, it will not be an outright stranger to it. There's some things you might be a stranger to, but with time you quickly pick it because you already have an idea. But something you don't have an idea at all, you just be there. They will quickly scratch you that this one is morose, this one doesn't even know anything. You understand? So you make sure you put yourself in a position that you are not hiding behind anybody during this internship. Make sure you put yourself in the forefront and you're able to work. And when I mean forefront, it doesn't mean that, oh, only you should facilitate money for the whole internship. No, you need to do a bit of rotation, but always put yourself out there, right? So severity is also part of the things you don't do during refinement. When you prioritize, you also see how important this thing is. So you just do that. Then you remember they already took you on acceptance criteria, definition of ready, definition of done. We all have different interpretations of what definition of ready and what definition of done is. That's click on one more, you see it. Definition of ready, definition of done. You have different interpretation of what it is. So your team will sit down together and decide on what those definition of ready, definition of done is. You sit down, you do your team charter and all. Then the importance of refinement is just to keep the backlog up to date. You need to keep grooming your backlog. You need to get prepared and prioritize for the next sprint. Eliminate any chaos in the backlog, because backlog can be so dirty sometimes. There's no better word than to use the word. In fact, I have try to stop saying, oh, my backlog, some of the stories are redundant, or this time around is now a dirty thing. So you sit down, make sure that anything that is redundant, take it off. There's no need packing junks and taking into your backlog. You understand? So we need next slide. I'm already in the importance of refinement. So after the importance of refinement, next thing, we now go to invest criteria. Guys, remember invest criteria? I remember vividly that Uzo took you guys on invest criteria, where of course, it's an acronym of what your story should be like, right? Before you can put it into sprint. It's very key to mention it, because without mentioning it, people get lost and just put different things in the sprint. So for invest criteria, some of the things you need to note for the invest criteria is to make sure that your story is independent. You're not depending on any other person to be able to do that story. Your story, you can negotiate on it, you can discuss about it. How can we implement this thing? How can we refine it? You're able to negotiate on that story. Your story must be something of value, something you want to finish within the sprint, right? That you want to value. It should be small enough to finish within the sprint. You should be able to size it, estimate it, and put the effort you want to do in it. And then it must be something that is testable. It is clear enough to be tested that, okay, this thing is correct. So if they say put alphanumeric as your sign up, somebody should be able to test it properly. If the person puts only alphabet, it shouldn't go in. If it goes in, then there's a bug there. Those kind of things are what you look at before you put in your stories, to make sure that they are testable stories. Okay, so let's go to next slide, please. I told you we're going to breeze through this. Now, remember, I told you that I'll come back and say this story, and I hope you guys will understand the story better. And I'll be as fast as I can to say this story now. So, if you want to know how Scrum works, this is it. This is it. Everything I've told you, just put it in one pocket first. Now, this is how Scrum works. The executives or the product owner, not the product owner now, the product sponsor, the stakeholder, or any customer, they will come tell you that this is what we want you to do as a project. They speak to the product owner for that, and then the product owner comes to iterate to the team. And the team in this case right now for now will be the BA to do all the stories and put them on the board. The board I'm referring to right now is the Azure board or the Jira board, right? They put them, there are other boards that they use, but these are the two common ones that always stick in my head. Some people use different things, maybe Slack or different, I don't really use them, right? But it's good to have the knowledge of it anyways. So all the things they think they want to do on the story is what they will put here. Not necessarily all, but as many as they think. And as time goes by, they can keep adding on to this, right? So they pick the first few things that are of priority, and this guy is the one that will prioritize it. Mind you, he's not on his own discretion. He must have gotten the sense of what the priority is from these guys. Even these guys will point to him that these are the first few things we want to see you, right? So this guy comes and gives us the priority that this is the priority, and then the team will now sit together and look at this product backlog. The PBI will sit down and say, okay, these are the things we want to select into the sprint. So we pick them and then carry them. The BAs write them properly and all. We'll sit down and plan. If properly. We even do a refinement at this point, break it into smaller stories, make sure there are things we can do within the sprint. It's not too many. We have the capacity to do it. We have the capability to do it. We have the technical skills to do it. We are able to walk through this within the next 2 weeks. Nobody's going on vacation that will take the workload and will not be able to do it. So you need to understand all those things. When this the internship goes further, you get to understand some of these things. Because you cannot be in a team, somebody will go on vacation, and if you've given the person equal job as somebody else, you will not be able to finish the work. So you need to know the capacity of the team at the time, or the capacity the team will have in that sprint. So there are lots that will be going on here, but I'll not overwhelm you with this. So when you sit with this and you decide, okay, these are the things we're going to do and everything, then the team will come, we'll now have a plan. We did BAs wrote this. We did sort of a refinement somewhere here. Then we now come, day one of sprint has now started. We'll now come and do the sprint planning here. When we do the planning, all the things we now agree to take into sprint, the moment we say start sprint, it becomes sprint backlog. So product backlog converts into sprint backlog. Sprint backlog will now carry on for the next 2 weeks that we are working. We'll now be having our daily stand-up every day, every 24 hours. We'll be having daily stand-up. Our transparency. We'll be saying, okay, we did this is what we did, this is what we did not do, this is what we did, this is my impediment, this is my issue, but I've been able to resolve the issue. I'm now doing this, I'm focused on this, and I'm being accountable to my peer, right? Remember, I'm being accountable to my peer. So we do this for 2 weeks straight, 10 working days, 24 hours, we must do this stand-up. Now, when we're done with the daily stand-up, right? By the end of all this duration, we will now have a finished work. This finished work is known as increments. So this increment that we're going to have, we're going to pile it with other increments to make it the finished product at the end of the day. But let's not go there. So let's just say we now have an increment. Now this increment, we will now take it to these big boys. You see these guys here, they're called big boys. The stakeholders will now go and do a sprint review with them. They will give us their own feedback, and we'll now adapt to that feedback and make changes. But when we are done with them, we'll just take a breather and now come for the retrospective meeting to see all the things that went well during the sprint. Remember, this is happening on the last day of sprint. So it is happening on the last day of sprint. We'll see all the things that went well, what didn't go well, the things we want to make better in the coming sprint. You understand? Maybe our cascading things was a bit slower. We need to speak up faster. We need to be more transparent rather in our dealings. All those kind of things. We'll have that discussion in our retrospective. So retrospective is more just like, we're just flashing back. We're just reflecting on what has happened. This is now the story. So they tell us, we work on it every day, we finish the work, we go and review it. This sprint review is called demo, it is called sprint review, it is called show and tell, depending on your organization. The organization will decide on the name they want. But officially it's called the sprint review. So you review them, then you now go and retrospect on it. That's the whole Scrum. Anything outside of this is no more Scrum, honestly. This is everything you're doing in Scrum. You see that it's easy, right? Easy peasy. But as easy and peasy as it is, you need to practice it to be able to understand how it really goes. There's a lot of intricacies when it comes to this, right? But at the same time, this is the smooth, simple product backlog, convert it to sprint backlog, you get an increment. In between, you started the planning. In between, you're doing your stand-up. In between, you're doing your review. In between, you're doing your retrospective. But before all this, we did our refinement. That's the whole Scrum. All right? So next slide, please, so we can wrap up. Now, I'm going to ask two people. You cannot escape this. I'm going to ask two people, and with this, we can wrap up. So, what is the most important ceremony? Raise your hands or just start talking. Anybody? You tell me what the most important ceremony is and why. Remember, I've mentioned 5 ceremonies for you. The sprint planning, the daily stand-up, the sprint refinement, the sprint review, and the retrospective, the 5 of them. Out of those 5, which one do you think is the most important? Anybody? Shoot.
All right. I would like to say that the most important ceremony is the daily stand-up.
Okay. Why? Why do you think the daily stand-up is the most important, Stanley?
Yeah, because it gives us the opportunity to continue to know the updates, to know what we are not doing fine, amongst everything we have. It gives us the opportunity to do better.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So I would say all the ceremonies are equally important. You can't leave one out for the other. For
Okay.
you to be as a Scrum team, you need to be following all the Scrum events.
Tolu, you better confess. You better confess. You better confess. Who else has an opinion? No, yeah, shoot.
Okay, all the ceremonies are important, but I think
Did you change? Okay, go ahead.
the sprint planning is the most important because before every other one would take place, you need to plan, get the venue, set the place, get the place ready, and to me, this is my opinion.
All right. Thank you. No, yeah, that's a perfect opinion. Don't worry. Eva.
Okay, all the sprints are very important, but for me, I think the sprint refinement is good and is more important because it even comes before the major planning. Ahead of that, you already know what you want to put in place, who will handle this, who is available, who is not. So for me, I think the refinement that even comes before you begin to plan is more important.
Okay, I like it. Okay, so everybody should raise their hands again. I'll go for Osas and then John. Osas, thank you so much, Eva. Osas.
Hi everyone. Hi, for me, I would say the daily stand up is very, very important. That's the key, to be honest, because sorry for the noise, the background
No
noise.
worries. Well understood.
That's where the issues that is currently going on within the sprint is being like discussed, and everybody have the opportunity to actually illustrate their point based on what they think should go where and right, and what they think the issues are and how they can resolve it. So it doesn't take long, but it's something that everybody like have the opportunity to actually say different things that that is going on and how they can resolve the issues. So I would say the daily stand-ups is very important. It's one of the key.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Osas. John, how about you?
Yeah, all the ceremonies are equally important. Without one, the others wouldn't suffice. So I think they are all necessary and important in the Scrum environment. Without one, the other ones wouldn't, come to fruition.
All right. Thank you so much. Now, you see the six of you. Did I tell you who gave me the best answer among the six of you? The six of you. Guess what? The six of you gave me a perfect answer. That's all the answers I want to hear. Sincerely, I'm not buttering you up. Sincerely, that's all the answers I want to hear. The only thing is you just need to buffer your reasons why you have mentioned all those ceremonies, which everybody gave me fantastic reasons, honestly. But you just need to get prepared because sometimes in interviews you can be asked things like this. Now, and I'm wild that some people even mentioned all are very important. However, they now pick their struggle, right? So I think it was only John that stood on the everything is equally important, and that's fantastic too, right? So, but really, everything, as you've said, I think that's why I said Tolu should confess because Tolu started all this everything. Everything is very, very important when it comes to the Scrum ceremonies. And there's an analogy we used to use. If you have a table that has 4 legs, right? If you remove one leg out of the 4 leg, guess what? Will the table fall? Somebody should answer me. If you remove one leg out of the 4, will the table fall? On mute.
No.
All right. All right. Who else?
Depending
Somebody
on the
said
size of, it depends on the size of the table and also if it is square or triangle.
well,
It would defeat the whole objectives of having a table, and because it's not just going to
all
become.
right. All right. I think that we're getting there. Nobody has said anything wrong, really. But the last explanation is it will defeat the purpose of having it when you have 3 legs. It won't fall. It won't fall. But guess what? The moment somebody leans on it, it's going to fall down. Forget the size, as long as it's a recommended normal size, whether big, small, but of course not too huge. if you have 4 legs, the table will stand live. But let somebody go and rest on that table, especially on the side that the leg is not broken. It's the same thing as these Scrum ceremonies. For you to say you are adhering to the Scrum values, you need to do all the ceremonies, right? It doesn't mean that you're not going to take a poster and say, go. Maybe something happens today on your team, all of you just decide that, okay, you know what, we won't do the ceremony today, maybe daily stand-up. It shouldn't be something that happens, every one day or every 2 days. It might just be once in like 3 months that something happens. You say, we must do it though. We must adhere. We don't do that, right? You let it go. For good reasons, especially, right? You just let it go. But at the same time, it should be a ceremony that should be held as regularly as you can, which is every day of sprint. Of course, except the first and last day of sprint, you don't need it. On the first day of sprint, you don't need it. On the last day of sprint, you don't need it. But all through the other 8 days in between the sprints, for your 2-week sprint, for example, you need to have your daily stand-up. But if anything happens that, maybe for example, we're 5 in a team, for example, and 4 people are in other very important meetings that we cannot take away, or maybe there's a general meeting that the company put in at that timing, for everyone to join. Will you say we will not respect the company? We must do stand up. We must do stand up. No, you can just even drop in your team's chat to say, okay, guys, can you put an update for the day or something while we join this other call? Just be as flexible. Remember, I told you Agile works for us. We don't work for Agile. Because if you make Agile too rigid for your team, they will not fall in love with Agile. So back to the question of what is most important. Everything is equally important. But at the same time, you need to be careful to know that they all need to happen for you to say you are being Agile. There's difference between being Agile and just, having a wrong mindset and think, oh, you're Agile. No, there's a big difference. So that's it. So usually, I'll say thank you and pack here. Thank you, everyone. And once again, apologies for the yada yada as regards my network earlier.
Okay.
Who has any questions for me? Any question? Damsala, over to you for the questions so we can wrap up in a couple of minutes. Okay, John, is that a legacy hand or a question hand? Hello.
Hi, John.
Sorry, that
Okay.
wasn't it.
Okay. Anyone with any question? Chris, you're
Sorry
trying to
about
come on. All right. Okay, Chuku, I see you. Thank you. Any question, guys? Any question, please? Quickly. Okay, so I would like to usually, I was going to say it, but I just wanted to test this. Usually, because of the way I've probably explained it as simple as it is, I'll rarely have questions. I can just have 1 or 2 interjections, like when I had earlier, when Chris asked the question at the time we're trying to understand. But when you understand it a bit, it's something you need to go and picture and rehear for you to have, questions. But however, if anyone has any question now, please feel free to ask. There's some people that are unmuted. I don't want to stop you from asking. If you have any clarity as regards, especially when it comes to all the ceremony, sorry, Damsa, do you want to go to the page that has the 5 ceremonies? If anybody has any question that you need, please ask now so we can quickly answer. Because tomorrow we'll be doing a demo of this. And when they are doing it, if you have a good understanding of what has gone on today, you will understand why they are doing what they are doing tomorrow. So that's why I'm asking the question again. Does anybody have any question that they want to ask or any clarity? Or I almost understand, but I don't understand this part. Are we all good? Okay, I take silence as a good thing. So I'm going to call randomly. Dorcas, how many minutes do we need to do a daily stand-up, Dorcas? Dorcas Tiwa, you need to unmute. Please unmute quickly. How many minutes do we need to do a daily stand-up? Hello. Okay. Rather than waiting, anybody want to unmute? I'm happy for chorus
15
answer.
minutes.
15 minutes. 15 minutes.
20.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Who said 20? Somebody's looking for my trouble.
I withdraw it. I say at
Now,
least, at most, but 15.
no, there's no at most though. 15 minutes is 15 minutes, right?
Aye.
Now, the at most you should be talking about is sometimes I actually start a Scrum meeting. We just, anything from anyone, are we all good? Everybody says, oh, we're fine. Okay, does anybody have any? And we end it. 2 minutes, we're done. It happens sometimes. And then we take back our 13 minutes. Why waste time, right? Then sometimes we'll talk, the 15 minutes will reach 7, we'll enter 20 minutes, like he said, right? But usually we try not to encourage that so that you don't take off that person's start of day, right? It's just supposed to be an in and out meeting, explain what you need to explain. Now, there's something we call parking lots that I just was reserved about. If you speak and speak and speak in a daily stand-up and somebody is taking too much of your time as a scrum master, you can find a way to tell them, you know what, can we take this into the parking lot? Parking lot is more like a separate ad hoc meeting outside of this current daily stand-up. So those people can go and talk their talk outside. So when we're done with the stand-up, they can continue with that conversation outside of the stand-up. But for the stand-up, remember the stand-up is touch and go, touch and go. So that's why we have something we call parking lots where you can just excuse yourself. So really, let's stick to the 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes, 15 minutes. Can somebody tell me what the duration of a sprint is usually, and then what the duration of the sprint is officially?
I think
2 weeks.
2 hours.
It's
No.
sprint. I'm talking of a sprint.
Duration is 2 weeks.
Thank you. Sprint duration is 2 weeks. Thank you so much. But however, it could be. Can somebody help me? I think Damsola is even showing it on the screen. It could be
1 week or
1
4
1
weeks.
week or 4
Yes, it
weeks.
can run between 1 to 4 weeks.
1 to
Thank
4
you.
weeks.
You need to know these things and let it stick. That's why I'm just asking us, randomly what some of these things are. Now, who can tell me the 3 artifacts? The 3 artifacts. 3 Scrum artifacts.
Backlog, increment, and sprint backlog.
Hey, who spoke now? Who spoke? John? Who spoke? Tell me now, who spoke?
That wasn't me,
Okay,
sorry.
5 marks going. Who spoke? Who spoke now? Was it John?
If it is correct, I can take it.
For real, who spoke now? Who spoke now? Was it John? You guys, you can snitch now. Snitch on him. Okay, was it you?
The person
John,
should
but I
talk
think it
now.
was
It wasn't me.
Tolu,
It wasn't
Tolu
me. It
something.
wasn't me. It wasn't me.
I'm suspecting John, Joe. I'm suspecting
Oh, no, he
John.
doesn't want the
No.
5%. Can we move on? Thank you.
The product backlog, sprint backlog, and the increment. That was very correct. That's what it is. And that's why you missed the 5 points. My guy would have given me fair and square. Okay, that's it. Then, now, who can tell me criticism in Scrum? And someone
Transparency, inspection, and adaptation.
Hey, Eva Longoria. Hey. Thank you. Noted. Yeah, you know me, I'm a small girl, so I'll tell you people discuss in the next meeting. Those that have points, don't worry. I'll tell you. Thank you, Eva. All right, okay. Then let me see which other question can I ask from this screen. Okay, who is the visionary of the team? Who is the vision of the team? Quickly, anybody? Who is the vision of the team?
Product owner.
Who is the vision of the
Product
team?
Product
owner.
owner.
Thank you. All right. Who can tell me the composition of the team also? Composition of the team?
Stakeholder, the
Composition of the team.
So
No, it's
product owner,
product owner, scrum master, and
Scrum
and the
master of the
developers.
team.
All right. I think I'll take Chris as the speaker, right? Chris, are
I
you the one
know
that
it's not well.
Yep.
It's not Chris Coco.
We'll split.
You share the mark.
Okay, you
Sure.
said the mark and being product owner, you got it. Then the scrum master and then the developers. Now, we used to call it development team. Well, I think we phased that out like 4 years ago now. They call it developers, but out there you still hear a lot of people calling it development team. So don't worry about it, but it's called developers, right? And that developer, when we say developer, it doesn't mean developer alone. Your UI UX designer is part of them. Your full stack developer, your front end, back end developer, the QA, the software tester, they are all part of the developers, right? All right. So then one last question. When you finish working in the sprint, what is the finished work called? the finished work that you've done in a sprint. What is it called?
Increment.
Deliverable.
Who
Deliverable.
said increment?
Deliverable.
Increment was the answer. Who said increment?
It was the person who spoke. He said, "Opayemi or
Or
something."
is it P?
No,
I
it's not
like that
unfair.
you
This
people
is
Now,
my
don't.
so I
right.
mean, and you
People don't
That's
said
very
it
know.
kind.
just
That's
now.
very thoughtful. Like
I
this.
like that you people don't know who spoke.
It was Joseph. I can see Joseph that typed it quickly. Increment.
All right. Thank you. That's it. That's what I have for today. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. So the first 5 minutes of tomorrow, we'll ask you guys if any question pops up. Maybe when you listen to the recording again and you have 1 or 2 questions, please let me know. And then tomorrow, like I said, we're going to be having this in a role play. So please try and join early. We're not going to wait. We're going to start immediately. 2 minutes into the call, worst case, we're going to start immediately. We're going to do role play. We're going to bring in some of our mentors that will do a role play for you and show you all what this thing encompasses.